Where'd it go? Hey, you guys, happy Tuesday to everybody. Tricia Turner here with another episode of Anything But Average, Achieving Success in Life. And I am super honored and happy to have Sheila here with me today. Just to give you guys a little backstory about Sheila before I let her talk, because she's got just an amazing story. I would have never met Sheila. I did not know her or anything prior to me joining EXP. So for me, that's just another one of those silver linings. But I heard her speak on stage and her story just blew me away. And so Sheila, thank you so much for doing this today. I think it's important that you're here, and I just want to thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here. I love that music. I was like,
isn't it energetic?
That was great music.
That was Nick, Krem, and Michael did it. They're brothers. They do awesome stuff.
That's awesome.
Sheila, tell everybody a little bit about where you are. What led you to, or actually share a little bit of your backstory, because her story is quite impressive. Just to clue you guys all in, she is living the life of her dreams right now, but her life wasn't always that way. So I've asked her to share a little bit of her story, because I think in the times that we're going through right now, everybody needs to hear about hope and positivity and how God can make a way where you don't see a way. So I'm going to leave it open to you, Sheila.
Oh, thank you. So I think a lot of times what happens is people see our lives, whether, we're agents, we're brokers, we're successful, we have teams, whatever money we make, maybe we have nice cars or nice houses, and they just think, oh my gosh, they have such an amazing life. It's that Facebook life.
Yes.
And they assume, because of pictures they see, or they assume because of what you have, that your life is that. Mm-hmm. Instead of understanding that so many people in the world have, their front-facing life, but then they're living something totally different on the backside.
Yep.
And I was one of those people. And so it's been kind of I've been living like two lives most of my life, where God has blessed me abundantly through work. And whether when I started in the media business coming out of college, I worked for radio stations and ran radio stations, and very successful doing that. And then I moved into, was recruited into the pharmaceutical business, and startup company, and ran a pharmaceutical division, became the national sales manager, became an owner, and got moved to Texas from New York City for that.
Wow.
So, basically built that company up, and then we sold it, and that's how I got into real estate. So even though I was very successful in my business life, my personal life was a shambles. And I grew up in a way where, like a lot of kids in my generation, where the dad wasn't around that much, or if he was, it was negative reinforcement. And so not necessarily horrible in the sense of the way they treated you, they just weren't as involved as what dads are today. Like dads today have huge expectations on them of what.
Yes, they do.
They're supposed to bring home the money. They're supposed to be their best friends. They're supposed to, lead the little leagues and all this other stuff. But it wasn't that way when we grew up. And so I wound up becoming into one of those situations where I was looking for men to make me happy or to love me because of the lack of love I felt from my father. And so I wound up being in a lot of abusive situations, and wound up going from person to person, just being abused, because I would get to the point where I literally had to get out of it because my life was on the line at different phases throughout my life. And then ultimately my kids' lives were on the line, and we had to escape situations because of what we lived through. And my last situation was with someone who, it all looked rosy and great, and he looked amazing, and he looked like he was the love of my life. And turned out to be a drug addict. He was addicted to pretty much everything you could imagine: crack, coke, meth, PCP, gambling, you name it, he was addicted to it. And so I literally lived through all the things you would see on TV, to the point of going into crack houses, dragging him out, trying to get him to come home, being machine guns everywhere around me, having my life threatened 5 different times, and just crazy, crazy life. But
how long did that go on, Sheila?
We were married 7 years.
And during that time, were you also maintaining a job and taking care of your family?
I ran a brokerage. I ran 12 offices in 4 states. And I was personally running at my own team as well, doing 15 million in production at the same time.
So you were going to work every day pretending all life was great, and then it was a total shit show and just hell, at home.
Yep, exactly. And
but you're running a successful business that whole time.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like you never know where somebody's at. I mean, truthfully, until you really get to know someone personally, until you really get to be in their life and see their family and see their kids, and you really don't know people. Mm-hmm. And honestly, you really don't know people until you live with them. When you live with somebody, you really get to know somebody.
That's so true.
But the amazing thing, I think, for people to understand is it doesn't matter how bad things are. And you've heard this from many, many people who've been successful throughout their lives in many different industries. It doesn't matter how bad things are or how down on your luck you are or how much you're suffering. You just got to get up. You just got to keep going. You just got to keep doing the right things. And eventually, somehow, by God's grace, he works things out. And so I really, during that time, hunkered down and started spending, it was like doubling down. I started spending literally 4 hours a day reading and praying.
Wow. So when did you find the time to do that? Running a business like that, gosh, your schedule had to have been crazy.
4 a.m. till 8 a.m. So I would get up at 3:30 or 4 every morning. A lot of times I'd wake up at 3 or 3:30 just because I would wake up without a clock. But I just decided that if I want my life to change in any area, if I want my spiritual life to change, if I want my marriage to change, if I want to be different with my children, if I want to have a different financial future, it has to start with me. It's my responsibility to become who I want to be, and then who I want to be for other people, whether it's God or whether it's my children or whether it's my parents. Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What do I want my life to say? And so I started making decisions about my life. And the more I started changing and the more I started investing in my relationship with God and in aligning my life to the scriptures. And it was very painful because I had to change everything just about myself. And over the years, the more I did it and the harder I worked at it, I'm not going to say it becomes easier, because still every time something comes up, every time I see something in my character, or every time something gets exposed that is not in line with the scriptures, it hurts. It hurts to see yourself clearly, because it's really ugly in there, some really ugly stuff. But every time I commit myself to doing that, it's amazing how it's kind of, I always joke about him. He parts the Red Sea for me.
I love that.
And a lot of my life has literally been a miracle of him parting the seas and bringing me through on dry ground and bringing me to another place and to a safe place and to a place where he prospers me. And that's pretty much what he's done.
So when you went through that horrible time, that 7 years, how long ago was that?
It finally ended in 17. So 3 years ago it ended.
So since then, and I'm sure that had to have been a huge transition for you. Since then, how has your life changed?
Oh my goodness. I live in Puerto Rico.
I know, isn't that amazing?
I'm on the ocean right now, looking at the ocean. So I have a house in Puerto Rico and a house in North Dallas. I travel back and forth. I still have a team out of Dallas. I have agents all over the world on my team in EXP. I basically get to spend my days helping people. Mm-hmm. So I coach, I train, I mentor, I recruit, I serve, I speak at events, I do Zoom calls all day long and help people. But it's really been able to, and I've written a lot of books. I think 7 books, 6 or 7 books have been published already. Yeah. So wound up becoming a #1 Amazon bestseller in 6 categories.
Love that. What are some of the names of your books for everyone listening?
Well, my books are spiritual books about my journey. It's amazing how every phase through all of this, didn't start writing until 2016.
Wow.
So it started with this whole journey of transformation of getting out of this situation. And so the first book was called True Success, because what I realized in my change was that I had to master my mind in order to change anything. And so it really became about, okay, how do I get rid of all of this garbage in my head that I've been told my whole life by my dad and men and all that stuff? And how do I start to believe what God says? Because a lot of people look at God and they think, he's just going to punish us and he's just out to get us or whatever. But when you really understand who he is, it's actually, he's just constantly telling you how much he loves you and how he wants to do good for you and how he wants to protect you and take care of you. But we're running away trying to do something else or trying to get that from someone else instead of just stopping and allowing him to work in us and transform us into the best we can be. But once I started really listening to him and really deciding that I don't feel like you love me, but you tell me you love me, so I'm going to choose to believe that you love me, no matter how I feel, even against my feelings, and start believing the facts instead of the feelings, things started changing. So that was what the first book was about, is really just getting in line. I did a lot of studying on books that have been written by like Napoleon Hill.
Oh my God, love those.
Affirmations books, all, Zig Ziglar, all about the mind. And then I moved from there into transforming my body, where I fasted for a year.
You did not.
I did.
You fasted for a year. Okay, what did you eat? Like nothing?
Vegetables and nuts and seeds and fruit for a year.
Wow.
So I wound up basically becoming vegan.
Yes.
And have just stayed vegan. So
wow, that had to have been hard.
It was really hard at first because I grew up in Kentucky.
Yeah.
On a farm, so we ate meat and potatoes every day.
Wow.
But I was determined
in doing the fast. I've never understood that.
Well, it basically comes down to, okay, God, if I'm willing to work on mastering my mind and getting my mind into line with your scriptures, then I also have to start looking at every other part of me. What does it mean for my body to be in line with you? What does it mean to master my body? And I'm not talking about bodybuilder muscles, that kind of thing. I'm talking about obedience through what I eat, what goes in my mouth, and what comes out of my mouth. Everything from what do I say to people? How do I treat people? How do I talk to people? What's my tone when I speak to people? Am I condescending to people? Am I harsh to people? Am I arrogant? There's so much I've had to work on. I could go on.
When you're saying that, I'm just like, oh my gosh, how long does this take you? Because that's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, I mean, the reality is once you start really working on yourself, you realize what a mess you are.
I bet. And what a project.
What a project. But
yes.
The amazing thing is, it's like anything else in life, until you start chipping away a little bit every day and working on it, then you start seeing progress and you start seeing, wow, I'm not acting the same way I used to act. I'm not treating people the way I used to treat people. And so you really start seeing how much you're changing because you're just deciding who you want to be. Mm-hmm. So that was the next book. And then it went to, it was mastering my heart. And then I wound up writing a book about the greatest commandment, about mind, heart, soul, body, strength, mastering all of you, giving all of you. And then I wound up writing a book. Actually, because I kind of went through all of that, I wrote a book about what had happened with living with and loving an addict.
Oh, wow. I'm sure that is powerful.
That was pretty painful.
I bet it was.
And actually, Michael Reese is the one that encouraged me to write that book.
I love that.
Yeah, he's the one that helped me. He's the one that helped me figure out the title. And it took me a while to write it because I was just trying to process while I was doing it at the feelings at the same time. But I'm really grateful that I did that because I feel like it's helped me get to another level. But I mean, the truth is
that you're able to have forgiveness as well, because that's a lot of painful things that you went through in your life.
Yeah, you start the more you see yourself clearly, the easier it is to forgive. Mm-hmm. Because if you're so busy focused on someone else's garbage and the stuff they've done to you, it's really hard to forgive people. It's really easy to be bitter when you're focused on their stuff. But when you change the mentality and you only focus on your own stuff of, okay, well, that person did that to me. How am I going to respond? How am I going to treat them? Yeah. What is my choice going to be? And because I don't have control over if they're going to be mean to me, but I do have control over how I'm going to treat them and others based on that decision that they made. And it really changes your life when you switch the focus and just really start focusing on who do I want to be, no matter how anybody else acts. And I mean, when you look at real estate, a lot of our industry is so caught up in being big, being successful, being the best. I'm number one, beat my chest. I'm la, la, la. I've got these awards. And you know, so little of our industry is spent on who is that person, you know, right. What do they do with the gifts they've been given? How do they treat people with what they've been given, or what good do they do with what they've been given? So I'm just trying to make a shift in my little world over here with the people that I'm involved with.
I love that.
You know, if we focus more on how we can be better people, we will be more successful, because if you're nicer, if you're more helpful, if you're more giving, if you're more serving, you will do more business. And that's what we've seen. We've been more successful just because of the shift in the attitude.
So with you, you've said a couple of choice words that are they're defining. It's like focus. You've made choices. You made the decision. They're all, like you said, you're going to decide what you allow in. You're going to decide your thoughts. It's control of your mind. And so it sounds to me like you're on this relentless pursuit of being a better you, always being, you know, God's perfect image. And that's what we're supposed to do. And so my then thought goes to, well, okay, 2020, all of us were excited. It's a new decade, you know, with that usually brings great things, we think, you know, and 2020 hasn't turned out to be so great for a lot of people. You know, we have all this strife and evil and hate and fear in our world right now, much that we've never seen before. So you, who is focused on, you know, his walk and his ways, and I'm right with you, but a lot of viewers aren't. What do you say to those people that are suffering right now and they're scared and they're anxious? What are your thoughts, and what is he telling you to say about that?
Wow, that was a big question.
I know.
That was a really big question.
I know.
So recently, because really through COVID, I mean, I think we all kind of had to, you know, stop real quick, because we were just trying to figure out what it was first.
Yes.
We were trying to figure out, holy mackerel, am I going to die because of this thing that, you know, it came so fast and furious on everybody that it took us all a minute, like a blink, to try to just figure out, okay, where are we at with this to begin with?
Yeah.
And then you sat back and started watching all of the unfolding of the devastation of it. The unfolding of the financial world, the unfolding of people's businesses, the unfolding of relationships, all of the abuse skyrocketed, pornography skyrocketed, alcoholism skyrocketed, all these numbers skyrocketed because of what was happening. And then also you had a lot of people, just the anger, all of the rage and all of the truth is all of that stuff was there before. It's just unleashed now. So I don't believe 1 second that all of the stuff we're seeing now about the anger and the racism. I don't know if you've watched The 13th yet. Have you watched that movie?
I have not. No.
Oh, you have to watch that movie. Have you watched the other movie? Let me see. What was it?
So it's called The 13th?
It's called The 13th, but it talks about how all the social injustice that has led up to today.
Okay.
To Black Lives Matter. It's very, very powerful. It's on Netflix.
Okay.
But, and then Just Mercy is another one that came out at the theater.
I saw that one. Yes.
Amazing movie.
Yes.
But I think for those of us who grew up in white middle America, we were clueless with what all of the people who grew up Black, or even people who have lived here who are Hispanic, or even many people I've heard of from the Asian community, what they've suffered. But predominantly, a lot of the abuse has been towards the people who are Black.
Yep.
And these movies really show what was done to them and what's still being done to them. And for the majority of Americans like us, we're clueless.
Yeah.
Because we don't think that way. Number one, my very best friend in the whole world is Black. Most of my best friends have been Black or Hispanic. And so I don't think that way.
No, they don't see color. They're just people.
A lot of people don't think that way, but the portion that do think that way and the portion that are controlling the laws and are hurting people, it is on a scale beyond what is even fathomable. And these movies help bring that stuff out. So I don't think that it wasn't there before. I think now it's just exposing it. So I look at COVID as a good thing.
How do you handle that,
Well, I mean, the reality is it's a one-on-one situation. It's not like I can handle it from a public perspective because everybody experiences something different. And so we need to individually listen to stories. We need to listen to the suffering. We need to listen to what they went through, their families went through, what generationally they went through, and be sensitive, number one, to each person. And then as a culmination of the whole group of people, hopefully become more sensitive to, number one, listen more, and then do whatever we can to help affect a change. Because the truth is, like you said, anybody who says they believe in God, anybody who says they are a Christian, if they treat any individual human being, no matter what their skin color is, if they treat them the way we've seen people being treated on these shows or the media, you cannot claim Christ.
That's exactly what I say.
Cannot claim him if you're going to treat people that way. Now, I'm not saying that all of us have not done things that are racist, felt things that are racist, treated people in ways that we shouldn't have treated people. I'm not saying all of us haven't done that. Of every nation, I think, has done that. But I think COVID's good. COVID is shutting things down and exposing things that should have been exposed. It's helping people have a voice that haven't had a voice, that should have had a voice, be able to speak their voice, and hopefully the rest of us will become sensitive and do our parts to affect a change in it. So I believe COVID is a gift to help us stop running so much, stop being focused on the wrong things, focus on what really matters truthfully. Because when you look at this world and you look at life and you look at everything you've been given, all the opportunities you've been given, all the money you've been given, none of it matters.
No.
What matters is you as a human being and the relationship I can have with you and that person over there as a human being, and how can I have a relationship with them? Because really people are all that matter. That's it. Because all this other stuff goes away. And really, in the end, the difference our lives will make are not how much money we have. It's how many lives can we impact? How can we share and love and give and care? That's what makes the difference. Now, money, great, to help you do that on another scale, which is what I'm trying to do now. Take the money I'm given and affect more people, give to more people, share with more people, care for more people. That's the difference the money's done for me.
I love how you think COVID is a gift. And I think that is a beautiful thing, because so many people, I mean, and there are a lot of people that have suffered and are suffering from it. I have friends that have it, and it's a horrible thing, and they're very sick. But for you to have that mindset that it's a gift, I think is a beautiful thing, because you can get filled with despair, and people are lost, you know, with all of the rioting and the violence. It's real easy for some that aren't as strong-minded to think, I'll just give in. I'll just quit. I'm just going to stay home. I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to keep pushing forward. So what do you tell those people that have that mindset when they're just consumed with the media and it's consumed their minds?
Well, I don't get involved with the whole media thing, number one. So there was a story I had heard about Thomas Edison that, you know, he had made more than like 1,000 things, creator, right? And back in December 1914, he had worked for 10 years on a storage battery. And apparently it strained his finances a lot. And he was, I guess, working, and whatever happened in that evening, something happened and there was a spontaneous combustion, and it had broken out in the film room. And within minutes, apparently, you know, all of the films and records and all the flammable things were in flames. And they said it took 8 towns sent fire trucks to help put out the fire.
Oh my gosh.
It was so intense.
Wow.
The attempt to douse it was futile. So everything was destroyed, right? Edison was 67 at the time.
Wow.
So all of his assets, boop, gone. And they said that it was $2 million worth of damage. And his buildings were only insured for $238,000 because they thought it was concrete, so they thought it was fireproof, but it wasn't.
Oh my gosh.
So the story was talking about how his son Charles, who was 24, was frantically searching for him, you know, and his heart was breaking for his dad, you know, losing everything.
Sure.
And he saw him, and his dad goes, "Charles, where's your mother?" And he's like, "I don't know." He goes, "Go find her and bring her here. He was just sitting there watching the flames. And he said, "She'll never see anything like this as long as she lives."
Oh my gosh.
And so the next morning, his son said that Edison got up and he looked at the ruins, and he said, "There is great value in disaster." He said, "All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start new."
Wow.
And it said 3 weeks later, Edison delivered the first phonograph.
Unbelievable. I've never heard that story before.
Yep. So just that thought of, you know, here's a man, 67 years old, $2 million in loss. And his opinion is there's great value in disaster, that now we can start anew. So I look at it from the perspective of, you know, you had time to reconnect with your family. You had time to reconnect with your children. You hopefully had time to reconnect with God, or even look for God, or try to find God, or try to see if there is a God. And yes, anytime there is great disaster, yes, there is great loss.
Yep.
But if you look at it from the perspective of, yes, there's great loss, but there's also a reason for it. There's great gain. What is that gain? And so the gain is hopefully the relationships, hopefully people not being so caught up in things and caring more about people. And hopefully the whole Black Lives Matters things will be a part of that people will care more about human beings instead of races or classes or me against him, or, you know, having more money or whatever.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, or use the money that you have to actually help people. You know, how can you, yes, you need to take care of your family. Yes, you need to pay your bills. You need to be responsible. But why not take a portion of what you have? Because if you realize how much we have compared to other people, I mean, when I was in Africa, literally the streets are dirt. The streets are dirt roads, and they're not like easy dirt roads. And millions of people are walking up and down them with no shoes on to go to work. And that was Zambia. And just the poverty in the world compared to what we have is so immense that if you've never traveled or served or given in other places, you don't realize how much suffering really is going on in the world, because, everybody's so money, more success, me, so I'm really hoping COVID will wake people up to say there's so much more to this life than just me.
100%. And you have been successful most of your life, and now look, just like you and I talked before we got on here, 10 years ago, you would have never imagined that this is where your life would be today.
Nope.
How blessed you are,
Yeah.
But you get to get up every day. You get to get up every day and help people make a difference. You're making a difference. And I told you this when I'm going to say it out for everyone to hear. When I heard your story on the stage, you touched my life, and I was like, you're just an amazing soul. And you have the reputation of a saint. Everybody knows you, loves you, and wants to be with you and wants to hear your story. And just, it's like Jesus. I'm not kidding. It's like everyone just wants to spend time with you because you just bring out the good in people, and you're real. You're real, and you're there to really share your story and to help others. And I think there's so many people in the world that should be more like you, because I think it's the best thing in the whole wide world. And I hope that through COVID and all of this rioting and violence, that more people turn to people like you and follow their story and look for hope. What is your hopes, or where do you see the rest of this year going? And what do you hope will come after this year from all of this?
Well, it was funny, the last week or two, I've been praying through a lot of things. Just something had hit me one day. I don't remember what I was reading, but it was something hit me about but God. And I was like, but God. Then I started thinking about it and researching it, and there were all these scriptures that talked about but God. And when I started thinking about it, I thought, well, what do we usually think about? Like, what do you usually, when you think about but God, normally we're thinking about making excuses.
Yeah.
But God, I can't do that. But God, I don't know why I'm doing that. But God, I'm not qualified. But God, I'm the whatever. I'm nervous. I can't, whatever. And then we also switch it around and we say, God, but let me do this. Or God, but if you'll do this for me, But if you look at God, it's like, but God doesn't make excuses. But God always keeps his word. But God does what he promises he'll do for us. But God is the one with all that power and all the authority and all the control and all the understanding. And it's like, well, what about me? What can God say about me? Does God say, but Sheila will obey me, but Sheila will humble herself before me, but Sheila will apologize, but Sheila will change, but Sheila will sacrifice for me? Is that what God's saying about me? And it's like, wow, it's so convicting, because we're so fast to, like you're talking about, people getting depressed and people just are so downhearted or so upset or so angry or so whatever during this time. When you start really looking at all the scriptures about but God, it talks about, but God remembered Noah, but God saw my hardship, but God did not permit them to harm me, but God came to him in a dream, but God will be with you and your fathers, but God intended it for good, what you intended for evil. And just all these scriptures about how but God always has something good, always has something, a benefit, or always a blessing that he's trying to give us. We're the ones that screw it up, because
So true.
We're the ones making excuses and doing all this other stuff. And then this week, one of the things that really hit me was there was a story about Mother Teresa. A guy had gone to her. She used to run this thing called the House of the Dying over in Calcutta. And he went to work for her for a couple months. And, you know, he comes up to her and she says, so what can I pray for you about? And he goes, well, I've come thousands of miles from the US and I pray for clarity. I want to know what I want to do. God wants me to do with my life. La, 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 la. And she said, no, I won't do that. And he goes, what do you mean you won't do that? She said, clarity is the last thing you're clinging to and you must let go of.
Wow.
And she said that she laughed and she said, I've never had clarity. What I've always had is trust. So I pray that you will trust God. And the thing I was reading, it talked about how so much clarity winds up being it's counterproductive to trust because we're so dependent on clarity instead of dependence on God.
Mm-hmm.
Really look at all the people in Hebrews 11, all the people of faith. You know, Noah waited 120 years for rain.
A long time. Could you imagine that?
Yeah, Sarah, you know, was like 100 years old before she had her kid.
Right.
Abraham's, it said he went, he didn't even know where he was going, got up and went. God said go and he did it. So there's all these stories in the Bible of faith, but it really was about, you know, people were not focused on, okay, when you make things clear for me, I'll go do something.
Yep.
When you show me what you want me to do, then I'll act. Instead of in faith and in trust in him, you go and do, and then he parts the seas and he does the things and he leads you. And that's one of the big things I'm seeing is that everybody's so driven, and there's even books written about clarity. There's so many people that I want to be clear about my goals and clear about this and clear about that. And it's like God saying, well, yeah, and you're not going to trust me, right? Because you're too busy trying to do all this over here on your own. So one of the big lessons I think for me has been clarity is really my clarity about him, not about me. My clarity with my walk with him, my obedience to him, my focus on him. And if I'm clear with that, honestly, I don't know how he does it, because truly, to me, it's always a miracle, or it's always like the parting of the sea kind of thing. I'm like, I don't know how he does it, but he does. So as soon as I do my part and I do my trust and my focus on him, and I quit being all screwed up in my own mind, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm yours. Take me. What do you want? I'll give up whatever you want. Then bam, he just starts blowing it out. And it's like, huh.
But you know what? I believe that it comes, like I talk about a morning routine. Of course, I'm a huge believer in that. I put on my suit of armor every day. I feed my mind, body, and soul before I ever look at anything. I got to make sure my mind is right. But I read something the other day. It was so impactful to me. It's like, I'm very obedient and I'm very robotic and everything's methodical. And so I pray every morning. I read scripture every morning. But sometimes when our life gets so busy, we know how our routine is supposed to go, but we'll sit down there and we'll make our prayers just because we're supposed to. And I was reading this message the other day and it said, stop doing that. I feel like it was speaking to me. And it was like, learn to just sit quietly, because when you're doing nothing but speaking, you can't hear. And I think not only do we need to do that in prayer, sit quietly and listen for him, but in this world with all these people that are speaking out and everyone's just reacting and acting, nobody's just sitting still and listening and letting others speak. And I think that would make such a difference in our world.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, probably a lot of these people, their anger is fueled predominantly because no one has ever listened.
Yes.
That no one, the other thing I've seen is they're trying to talk and people are saying, but that was 200 years ago.
Right.
Or that was not had nothing to do with me. That was my grandfather. It's like, you totally missed the point.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how long ago it was. If someone's hurting and their souls are hurting and their lives have been hurt because of the generational consequences that have been handed down, the least you could do is shut up,
right,
and listen to them, and patiently, kindly try to, I would love to say we could empathize with people, but we really can't, because we've never walked in those shoes. It's no different when I talk to people about abuse or all the things I've been through. It's like, if you've never walked a mile in someone's shoes, you cannot, as much as you want to empathize with them, you cannot.
No.
All you can do is be kind and listen and be sensitive to them, because you don't know their pain. You don't know their suffering. You don't know how, the 13th movie will just make you angry and sad, and
I'm gonna watch it.
It will bring up every feeling in the book, because they show the pictures of these kids that were hanged or beaten, and their faces are all distorted, and it just, everything was shaking, because it's just like the horrendousness of what people do to people. And we just can only hope that those of us who are willing to make the attempt to not act the same way as other people.
Yes.
The hope is that that will somehow, if there are enough of us, maybe it will make a change for the good, and hopefully help. It can't take away the pain of what people have suffered, but at least we can listen, and at least we can be sensitive, and try to love them with whatever we're capable of doing.
And change the direction that our world is heading. I believe that. I believe that if more people like you and I get up and speak out about it, and speak publicly, and unite and stay strong, that we can make a difference. And we are making a difference. I believe that every day.
I do too.
I'm thankful for you and for everything that you do, and for being here with me today. Thank you so much for sharing with everyone. Hey, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you or learn more about you. Where can they find you?
Sure. If you want to reach me, you can reach out on Facebook. I have a couple of different sites on Facebook. And then also my number, you can reach me through my office number, 972-948-0715. Just text my office, and my assistant will set up an appointment for me. But really, it's just, I think let's all figure out how we can be better versions of ourselves first. It's like, let's take the time to quit making excuses for who we are or what we've done or how we treat people, and let's change. Let's change ourselves first, and then prayerfully we can go make an impact with somebody else. And the truth is, you can always sell more homes. You can always make more money. And I teach classes, and I'd be happy to share with people on how to be more successful. You're the queen of success in real estate, so you're the perfect person to teach.
I'm just modeling you, Sheila. I'm just modeling you.
It's just, you're a part of an amazing team. EXP is an amazing team.
Yep.
And so the thing is, again, it doesn't matter how successful you are. If you are, if you're not handling it the right way, and you're not being responsible with the gifts you've been given, whether it's the talents or the money or the relationships or whatever. So I could only hope and pray that people will take this message to heart from an introspection, and not an introspection of security, because it's not about being insecure about yourself. It's about being honest and vulnerable and real, and accepting responsibility and making decisions to change.
Amen to that. I love it. Thank you so much for being here today, Sheila.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye, guys.